But let's also talk about the man he beat in the final, the first Euro Tour final after 5 semi-final defeats previously for Nathan Aspinall. How much confidence can he take away from this run going into the rest of his Premier League campaign?
Yeah, I think he'll take a lot, and you'll hear from Nathan's manager, Martin Folds, in a moment. We asked him about the run to the final this past weekend as well, and Nathan himself on the stage afterwards, he was gracious in defeat, and he said that the way Michael played in the final proved why he is the world number one and world champion, and he said he's going to take the positives from it and go again Thursday night in the Premier League and hopefully use it to have a good run in Brighton this week. And I must admit, watching it on Monday evening, I was surprised that Nathan Aspinall hadn't been in a Euro Tour final before. I just assumed that he had, but his record in semi-finals going into the event was played 5, lost 5 on the Euro Tour, and a few close ones in there to Dave Chisnell and Willie O'Connor, but there were a few more one-sided defeats to Gerwyn Price and Danny Noppert last year. And he has been knocking on the door, but as we've seen, being able to put it all together in that final session of a Euro Tour, 3 games, is tough, and let alone 2 games, getting it right to get through to the final. And I think Nathan's finding that out in the Premier League this year, because he's back in the field this year. It's the first time for him playing under this new format with the nightly tournament, and we've seen he's not won one of those nights yet. He's made a final, but he's lost the most semi-finals out of any of the players in the tournament. He's getting through that first game 7 out of 10 times, which is just behind Michael van Gerwen on that stat, but then he's falling short in the next round. So I think perhaps more than the performances, it's going to be the results that he's going to take out from that run on Monday, getting through to the final, showing himself that he can win more than one game in a session and get into a final. And he's going to need it for the Premier League, because if he wants to make the top 4, I don't think he can just rely on winning one game a night. He's going to have to get to a final and maybe win one of these events, because it's pretty tight between himself, Michael Smith and Johnny Clayton for those last couple of spots. So yeah, he's going to need to find a way of doing that in the Premier League, but I think doing it on the Euro Tour at the weekend, he should take some confidence from it. And we've seen countless times with Nathan Aspinall in the past that he can put a bad night or a bad result behind him. You look to last week, the Premier League, okay, he didn't play badly, averaged 100 and lost in his first game, but it was a result which ended up knocking him out of those playoff spots. And what does he do? Comes back 3 or 4 days later, makes his first Euro Tour final. So I think the confidence is going to be there for Nathan Aspinall going into this week, and he is right there in the mix for the playoffs now, and he's got to go and get the results for these remaining weeks. And it's going to be difficult, as I say, to get in the top 4 without reaching another final in those last 6 weeks of the season, and that's what he's going to have to go and do, I think.
Yeah, I more or less agree. I'll start though just talking about his weekend. I talked about the final briefly, but the run up to that, I mean, he was good but not spectacular across his 4 matches going into that. None of his opponents played all that well against him, but he ran into some players who were playing well. Obviously, Jim Williams, someone we've talked a little bit about this year, but he's currently in the World Match Play spots, played fairly well across his 3 matches, but didn't have the timing in the match against Nathan Aspinall, and Aspinall was able to get over the line. Andrew Gilding, it's a matchup that I don't think the stats really do it justice, because the first 3 or 4 legs, both players were, I would say, abysmal, but that would be giving them credit for playing better than they had been. It was an atrocious start to the match, but by the end, they still were both averaging in the 90s, because they were throwing 14, 15 dart legs at each other at the end. Aspinall probably played his best darts of the weekend over the last 5, 6 legs of that match. And then against Joe Cullen, in a match that seesawed a little bit, but Aspinall hit the shots when he needed to. And he wasn't playing at the level that I've been talking about all year, that you need to win titles, that at least if you play at that level, you give yourself a good chance. But he wasn't playing that far adrift from it. He was averaging in the low 90s more than the mid 90s. But it shows that if you do it and you have the timing, you can go pretty darn far. And maybe also get a little bit of luck. Having Luke Humphreys, who looked the best player in the field entering, I was about to say Sunday, but this week ended on Monday, entering Monday night. He didn't have it against Joe Cullen on Monday evening in the quarterfinals. That opened it up, and Aspinall took advantage. And Aspinall played fairly well. And you talked about stringing it together. You talked about all those semifinal defeats he's had in the Premier League. Getting that one extra win and playing the 3 matches in succession and playing them maybe not at the standard that will win you the majority of Premier League nights, but will give you a chance in most Premier League matches, will give him confidence. Because yes, he needs to play a little bit better than that to win a Premier League night. He needs, or at least you would expect him to, but he would give himself a chance. If he's playing 3 matches in the low 90s, he's at least going to give himself a chance most of the time. He's going to need someone to do what Michael Smith did to really close the door on him. Can he, though, lift his game and play more consistently at a higher level? I think he can, but he hasn't. And that's the question. Is he going to take out of this that I can string 3 good matches together, or I need to keep working? And I know at the very least I have it in the locker to string 3 good matches together. Let me work and build on this and string 3 great matches together. That's the question. He's right there in the playoff chase, but he needs to step up even from this. This should give him some confidence. This should give him some momentum, as Rod Studd would say. Someone I forgot to mention when we were going through our favorite guests of the last 100, of obviously getting Rod Studd on right as he was getting back from his stroke was one of the other ones I wanted to mention. But to use Rod Studd's least favorite word, maybe Aspinall will have some momentum coming out of this, and that will help him. But he does need to lift his game even more from this. This should let him know he can string 3 good matches together. He's going to need to string 3 great together, because likely getting to the O2 will require him to win a night at some point, something he hasn't done yet.